Hey guys, what is up? JTX here. This is part 2 of the Cyclone Raider video, bringing you the endgame version of the build. The build didn't change as much as I thought it would. There's definitely a couple changes in the gear and a little bit of change in the tree, but I think a lot of the core concepts have remained the same. It's just being scaled a little bit higher. So I'll quickly go over the changes now in the gear. So we're not using addresses anymore. We're using just a regular rare chest piece with mana reservation and a bit of life and resistance on it. We're looking for anger aura effect and increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills. The main reason why is because we're running a couple auras, a bunch more auras now that we didn't run before. This is in conjunction with a rare helmet with the increased mana reservation efficiency as a roll on it, as well as the Eldritch Implicit, so getting a lot of mana reservation across the gear here. Our ring here is been upgraded a lot, so we've got an Onslaught on hit ring. The reason why is because we've changed our Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh jewels. From before, we had Avatar of the Veil, which now we allocate ourselves. But now, since we have Onslaught on hit from our ring, we're grabbing the Avatar of the Chase from the Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh. So we're effectively getting the whole entire Raider Ascendancy now. So we're getting every single node essentially in value. That's why we're getting, so that's why we have Onslaught on hit on our ring here. The other ring is Curse Enemies with ability, just a bit of elemental damage, and obviously channeling skills of minus mana cost. So both these rings have the minus mana cost craft, so our Cyclone now costs 0 mana, so it's free. For our belt, we're running a Stygian Vice with a high amount of resistances and life. Inside the jewel, we have the Anti-Corrupting Blood, so corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you, as well as a jewel with a bit of life and accuracy rating. We are still running Precise Technique because it seems to be the best value for the build in terms, instead of going crit. I tried shifting the build towards crit, building crit, introduced a lot more problems than it solved. It couldn't really find a good balance between speed, defense, and offense at that point, so I've opted to stay with Precise Technique and then just not worry about crit. The boots are still the same, just life, movement speed, avoid ailments, and a bit of res. So for our gloves, it's still the same gloves. We've just got the corruption now with +1 to level of socketed gems. This lets us run an Enlighten 5 in the glove, and that's socketed to your auras, so you can reserve a bunch more. I'll quickly go over the auras that have changed now. So with all the reservation efficiency that we've taken in the gear, and as well as the level 5 Enlighten with the gloves, we're running how many auras? We're running Vitality, Haste, Grace, Precision, Anger. We're also running Herald of Ash and Herald of Purity, as well as Blood and Sand. So we fit a lot of auras into this build. It gives this build a lot of power from its aura, so it gives us a good way to scale the damage because you're both going projectile and also Cyclone damage. So auras are a good way of scaling both of those at the same time, compared to like specific gear or passive points on the tree that scale one or the other, or scale both. So that's why I kind of opted into the aura path here, similar to the earlier build I did this league. So for the weapon, still the same weapon from the first video. The Crucible Tree has changed a little bit. Still the same Crucible Tree as before. I haven't touched it, but I have I have changed where the passive points have been allocated. So before it went up through the middle for this AoE node and then to the reverse Cyclone direction. I've dropped both these nodes because I feel like they weren't providing a lot of value for the build. So this one particularly, you have to be below 100 int for the AoE to count. So this made a lot of pressure for your other blue gems. Instead, I got this node here, which is 60% increased AoE if you've killed at least 5 enemies recently. So that's the 60 minus 20. So you get a net positive of 40. And then you have this node here, which gives you a chance to scorch enemies, but you're always going to be scorching anyway because you're hitting so fast. The scorch effect is about minus 12% on pinnacle bosses like Elder or Eater or Worlds. So I think getting much higher than this, you'll probably need to scale a much bigger hit or scale ailment effect. Not that really important, just a nice bit of extra damage because Ignite isn't really giving us damage in the first place. And then, these two nodes are still the same, attack speed and increased global damage / attribute. In terms of gem links, I'll go over the aura gem links and all the new gem links I've added in. So in the gloves now, it's Grace, Haste, Divergent Anger, linked to an Enlighten. Divergent Anger gives increased movement speed, so it gives 1% increased movement speed per 20 quality So with the Ashes, it becomes 2% increased quality. This is kind of like min-maxing. We don't really need this, but yeah, just having the cool interaction between Ashes and all the divergent qualities on your aura gems, I think that's pretty neat. In the weapon, you got GMP, Vicious Proj, Conk Effect, Fire Pen, LE Focus, and Elemental Damage with attacks. The reason why we're running LE Focus is because we can no longer ignite enemies. We don't care about combustion, so we're running LE Focus instead for more damage. In the helmet, we're running Herald of Purity, Anomalous Blood and Sand. The cool effect of Anomalous Blood and Sand is it gives you increased projectile attack damage while in Blood stance, so that's more damage for our molten balls, and increased projectile speed while sand stance. So this is actually a lot of increased projectile speed from the quality and the Ashes combining together. Molten Burst from your Ngamahus actually needs a bit of projectile speed for it to feel effective, otherwise the balls come out too slow and most enemies are dead before they even get a chance to hit. I think the increased projectile speed feels really, really nice, so I definitely recommend picking up a Anomalous Blood and Sand. And then we have Precision and Herald of Ash, nothing crazy, just regular qualities here. In our chest, we have Divergent Cyclone linked to Conk Effect, Awakened LE Damage with attacks, Anomalous Pulverize. Anomalous Pulverize just gives us increased AoE onto quality, Awakened Added Fire Damage, and Awakened Fire Pen. In our shoes, we have Berserk linked to Life Tap and Enduring Cry, because our mana is 0, so we're using life to cast these. And then we have Vitality. So Vitality, you notice, is not linked to the rest, because if we link Vitality to Life Tap, it doesn't make it cost life. It just adds a multiplier to the mana, so it makes it cost more. And since we are already at 0 mana reserved, you don't want to have it linked. In terms of flasks, we're running Oriath's End for the Explode and Clear, running a Bottled Faith for increased damage taken. This also converts the Consecrated Ground regeneration into Rage regeneration with Calm Spirit. Quicksilvers with increased movement speed. I'm running a Dying Sun most of the time for the additional 2 projectiles and the Jade Flask. The reason why I had a Silver Flask in was just to demonstrate that since we don't have Onslaught anymore, without hitting enemies, just popping the Onslaught in the Flask here to give you an idea of like the speed within maps. So you can see the speed's still pretty decent. Just riding in the hideout, we don't have our Frenzy charges, we don't have Quicksilver active. In terms of Pantheon, still running Soul of the Brine King. We do have a bit more stun avoidance now, so we have 60% stun avoidance. Obviously, you might still get hit sometimes, but I haven't really noticed getting stunned in maps for a while now. I'm running a Soul of Valkash here, so we don't take extra damage while bleeding, because we already have Corrupted Blood immunity. This is just to prevent us running ourselves to death. Most of the time, it won't really matter, because our Vitality life gain on hit, Watcher's Eye, keeps us topped up for pretty much insta-leech against most mapping scenarios. So we're not really too worried about DOTs. The one we're kind of worried about is Chaos DOT. Our Chaos Res isn't great, but I think as long as you're hitting monsters, it's generally fine for the build. I'll go over the passive tree now. So there have been a couple of changes with the passive tree. Mainly, I'm running a Timeless Jewel here. I'm running a Lethal Pride here. So this is 12268. It gives mainly melee damage, double damage here, and we got a bit of Fizz's Extra Fire. I picked this up for about 2 or 3 divs. I'll have a video out about the Timeless Jewel and how to search for a good one for your build. So please, the link should be in the description for that video. If you want to have a look at finding the right Timeless Jewel for your build. This will work for any build, not just my current build here. So for the Cluster Jewel setup, we're running a Calamitous Field of Fight Martial Prowess on increased attack damage. This Field of Fight technically isn't needed for my build anymore because I don't have any mana, and my Cyclone costs no mana. The reason why I was running this before was I noticed that even with a 1 mana cost, sometimes your Cyclone could burn your mana away if you're attacking too fast. This kind of is the case when you pop your Berserk and you have Vow Haste. You're hitting really, really fast, so you're actually draining mana really, really fast. So having a source of mana sustain is pretty handy. If you don't really have a mana cost or you're not worried about the mana, any mana issues, you normally run Feed the Fury, which gives you life leech and increased attack speed. That's what I would recommend if you can afford the mana cost. Medium class is still the same: Titanic Swings, Towering Threat, and we have our Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh here with Avatar of the Chase. For this part of the skill tree, we have a Dot of Hope. This is actually really, really powerful because it lets us grab a bunch of useful nodes for us. So we get Master of the Arena for increased melee strike range, bit of melee fizz, and also regen. We also get Art of the Gladiator, so we get increased attack speed, accuracy, and we ignore penalties from armor, so a little bit more movement speed there. And Hatchet Master, this gives increased attack speed and 24% increased damage, so these nodes are actually pretty decent to grab with the Thread of Hope. You can also potentially drop Disciple of the Slaughter and just have these two nodes here, so you can save another 2 points. I haven't really thought about dropping these two nodes yet because they do provide a lot of value, but potentially you could if you want to further min-max the build. We've grabbed Physical converted to Fire here on our Fire Mastery, and this side of the tree still remains the same. The reason why we change out of Fizz damage converted to Fire is because our Watcher's Eye is different now. So instead of having the Fizz conversion to Fire with Anger, we have Damage Penetrates 30% Fire Res, and we have Vitality Life on Hit. The reason my old Watcher's Eye, it had phasing while you have Haste, not really necessary anymore because we have the Ascendancy node here for Quartz Infusion, so we have permanent phasing. So yeah, I think grabbing a Anger Fire Pen with Vitality seems to be the way to go because it gives you a bit of extra damage and you don't have to worry too much about getting the haste phasing interaction anymore. In terms of the stats for the build, we are 100% Spell Suppress capped. We have 100% Element Avoidance. Reses are capped. With our Flasks up, we have about 24k evasion rating. And our movement speed, with all the buffs popped, reaches somewhere around 270, so not slow. Once we get our frenzy charges, will probably be around 300%. So I'll quickly go over the PoB details here. We're sitting at about 1.3 million Cyclone DPS. Our full DPS is about 11 million with a 60 next Molten Burst. Obviously, our Molten Burst can go a bit higher than this because we have 11 projectiles and we have Vengeance Cascade, which lets them a shotgun by bouncing twice. So we can potentially go up to 22. I'm setting it at 16 to be a bit more realistic, that some balls might miss, some of them might not bounce and hit the boss back. We're sitting at a 22k effective hit pool. It's not the greatest. If we max out Chaos Res here, we might go a lot higher. And also, if we get a couple more life nodes, so if I leveled up to like level 98 and I went these two nodes, looking at about a 24k effective hit pool. So if we also have a look at our Berserk, if we take our Berserk off, sitting about 7.7 million damage. I think Berserk uptime is actually pretty good on maps because we do have a lot of rage being generated from your Enduring Cry and also the regen we have about 2.8 on average at the moment. In terms of the other PoB configs here, we can go here and look. So we have Frenzy Charges. We say we have 30 rage on average on a map. We're leeching mana, kill 5 enemies. So this is to activate the AoE node on our Crucible Tree. We have Blood Stance on. We have Scorch. Scorch effects about 12 on pinnacle bosses like Elder and Eater, and enemies on Consecrated Ground for our Bottled Faith. The build itself feels really smooth to play as a mapper. I've also taken on some of the endgame content. I think it can comfortably clear tier 16s now. You can make it your mapper to kind of like, blast through maps at a quick pace to help you farm whatever strategy you're running. It's obviously not the highest DPS build that you can make, but I think for the purposes of this character, it's done everything I wanted it to do. It comfortably can take on the endgame content as well as map really, really fast. So my final thoughts on the character. I thought this was a really, really fun character to play and also to map with. In terms of whether or not I think you should make the endgame jump, I think the investment for this character is really, really high for it to get to the point where you can map comfortably in high tiers. I think it's much better as the low tier map farmer from part 1. This is more of a proof of concept that you can scale this build to do high tier maps. If you want to run an end game strategy, albeit it does take a bit of investment. In terms of everything else for the character, I had a lot of fun playing the ultra fast Cyclone. Definitely feels fun to just spin around and not have to worry about stopping to attack and RSI from clicking your button the whole time. So for future plans going on ahead, Diablo 4 is coming out, so I probably will check that game out and make some content there if I do find it interesting. Don't worry guys, I'll still have a lot of PoE content coming out in the future. I have a lot of ideas and videos planned. So just giving you a quick update on what I'll be covering in the near future. If you guys like this video and you want to see more content like this, please drop a subscribe and leave a like. It really helps out for the videos.